I want to broaden our discussion out a little bit. We're going to continue this about guns and school safety with three people whose lives and jobs have been directly impacted by gun violence. Cedric Alexander is the former police chief of DeKalb County, Georgia, which is largely in suburban Atlanta. Stephanie Rawlings Blake is a former mayor of Baltimore. And Tony Montalto lost his daughter, Gina, in the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018. As president of Stand with Parkland, Montalto has pushed for increased background checks and for a federal red flag law. Look, I'd like to start with you, Cedric. I want to put up a quote here from an active shooter prevention expert that the Washington Post have. And this is what he said about what happened there. I want you to sort of break down what happened in the response here. He said, the first responding officer, I don't care if it's the deputy dog cartoon guy. He goes in and he stops the shooter. That's just part of the job. You've got a ballistic vest. You know what the kids have, crayons. You are duty bound to do something. If something is telling you to stay outside, you disobey that order. Is he correct?
Well, here's what has to happen is this. In those events, and certainly we found this out post-Columbine, officers on that scene who arrive first, you go inside that building, you follow that gunfire, and the whole intention is to move that gunfire away from those innocent victims who are innocent and who are defenseless. You move that gunfire towards you. You have an opportunity to win that gun battle. There is no other option. There's nothing else to talk about. That's what we have to do today.
It looks in hindsight as if you had a bunch of first responding officers who perhaps feared they were outgunned. Is that what you think may have happened?
Well, I don't know what was going through their minds and heart, but here's what I do know, is that when you respond to that scene, that is your training. That's what you've been training to do for the last 23 years. So that's what you do. Whether you go in there, you take whatever you got with you, and you go in there and you deflect that gunfire away from you. These innocent babies had absolutely nothing. Nothing. So it is your responsibility. It's my responsibility. If I'm the incident commander or I'm the last person hired, I got to go in there. I got to deflect that gunfire. I got to follow that and find that target, and I got to neutralize that target as quickly as I can until other help come. That's what I was sworn to do. That's what I get paid to do. Is it dangerous? Yes, but it comes with the territory.
Tony, you've been advocating figuring out some ways to give more access to security assessments for schools. Explain what you think could be the answer for schools.
Well, it's a multifaceted problem, Chuck. Stand with Parkland looks at securing the campus, better mental health screening and support programs, and finally, if you choose to own one, responsible firearms ownership. We've worked with the U.S. Secret Service and its National Threat Assessment Center to go around the country and educate and train local school staff, local law enforcement, and local mental health professionals on the results of their studies, which are a behavioral threat assessment process. And this threat assessment process identifies children who are exhibiting troubling behavior, and then it gets them the help they need long before they resort to violence. That's the key, is being proactive and preventative. And then we also need to have a monitoring piece where we monitor them and make sure that they're on track for the best possible outcome.
We've had two 18-year-olds in the last month, okay, legally purchase these weapons. This is not illegal. Legally do this. Would this have prevented this?
Well, in the New York case, he was subject to a threat assessment, but they failed on the monitoring piece. Okay. So that might have helped stop that. The shooter this week in Uvalde, which we feel for the families without a doubt, that shooter had some information that he put out online, and if someone had come forward and mentioned that, we might have seen some intervention before the tragic loss of life.
Stephanie, I invited you on because I wanted to, this gun problem we have in America is, we focus on it when there are mass shootings, but it's every day. There's not a city in America, there's something like, I think, only 2 states where gun violence is down, not up.
It is a horrible problem of gun violence. And, sometimes I feel like with the division in our country, we want to talk about, is it, the violence in our cities or the mass shootings? It's all of it. It is dealing with a complex problem with complex solutions. I think part of it starts with us owning who we are as Americans. I think sometimes we need to find mirrors that work in our country, because too many people look in the mirror and see They think they see someone who values life. But if you say you value life and you let these babies die and do nothing, and you can, your mirror is broken. So I really think we need to start looking for ways like that parents and people who've been impacted by the daily violence and these mass shootings can come together and work with our elected officials on some real common sense gun reform.
I want to ask all of you, though. Cedric, is this a gun problem or a security problem?
It's a combination of it all, but it certainly is a gun problem in this country, and we got to find a way to get our arms around this, particularly with assault rifles. There are assault rifles that are out there. You're talking about high velocity, 3,000 feet per second tools of nothing but destruction. What's the purpose of them being out on our streets? And police, quite frankly, being a former police chief twice, that is one of the most, if anything keeps me up at night, is knowing that the possibility of my officers and people in the public are going to have to come in contact with these this type of weaponry. And there needs to be a real conversation around these assault rifles and how they're so easily attained by anybody who wants them. You don't have to go to a gun store, Chuck. You can find them on the street at this very moment in any city, USA.
Stephanie, do you feel like law enforcement in Baltimore is outgunned?
I think law enforcement across the country is outgunned. We have more guns than people in this country. So I don't think there's any way to look at those numbers without seeing that we're outgunned. And we're outgunned in a country that says, if you listen to the polls, that the vast majority of us believe in responsible gun ownership. So I know it's possible for us to do better.
Tony, you have to live this tragedy over and over again. It's something you'll never get over, and nobody should expect you to. Does the public need to be shaken more by its lapels? My friend Jay Johnson has called for what he says is an Emmett Till moment, where Emmett Till's mother put the pictures of what happened to him, right, for all of us to see. Do people need to see this violence firsthand? And is that something you'd be comfortable with as a parent?
Personally, no, I would not be comfortable with that. It's terrible to lose your child or to lose your spouse, especially in a school shooting where they should be safe. I would not want those pictures of my daughter out there and made public. Sadly, I may not have that choice as the trial of the killer proceeds in Florida. But Cedric talked about the power of those weapons. People who shoot them, people who like them, should imagine what they do to the bodies of children in schools. We do need to have a look at ourselves. And what we really need is to stop pandering to the folks on the far right and the folks on the far left. We need to come together as an American family and do something about this problem. Congress has yet to act. We've seen President Trump and President Biden support red flag laws. Where is Congress acting on this? These are also proactive. They allow people who are concerned about someone to report them, have due process, and then have the weapons removed before they resort to violence. And that's what we have to do.
Thank you all for coming. Keep in mind, folks, they needed to do DNA match to identify some of these bodies in Uvalde. Thank you all.